Julie Chapman. I'm the project director for the Faith Inclusion Network of Dallas. Many of you may have participated in our symposium of February 2013. That was when my wonderful predecessor, Terry Ketcher, was the project director. And I got a Facebook message from her yesterday or last night. We were going back and forth, and she was like, "Good luck. I wish I could be there." The same stands for me as for her, is that this is very near and dear to our hearts. And so we're just so glad that you're all here, and hope that the information you get this morning will be information that inspires you and empowers you, and you'll be partnering with us and trying to weave inclusion into our faith community. So today we've got several different presenters here from different faith-based groups, and I want each of them to be able to share what it is about their particular faith community and the importance. So it may not be your faith, but it's their faith, but these are all models that we can all use. So that's the point. So we have today with us Robin Leogrand, who's the president of the Community for Permanent Supported Housing, and Irene Nematka as well. They'll be our first presenters, and you'll find the information that they share very valuable and to some extent alarming at times. So we've got Lisa Brodsky and others with HI Inc., and that's Community Homes for Adults, and that particular program serves, for the most part, the Jewish community. And so they bring a beautiful example of how important it is for residents in these programs to be able to make connections with those that they share faith with and holidays with. Cornerstone Ranch, we've got David and Cynthia Heaton here, and others that represent Cornerstone Ranch. They're going to be sharing their testimony about what inspired them to even attempt to start the development of Cornerstone, and I'll let them tell you about it. But so today the models of what we've got are independent housing programs, large developments, the goal being that everybody will be able to understand there is a way for every congregation, every faith-based community to, in one way, impact the programs that we have available for adults with special needs, and providing for their life as they age out to age in. Malky Schick is also here, and she is the coordinator for the Special Needs Resource Team. So she and I are the two prongs at JFS. I deal with the volunteers and make sure we have programming addressing the needs of our families and individuals with special needs in the Jewish community. And Malky oversees and coordinates our resources, the people who really can help you. So they have all those initials after their names. And as I always tell people, the only initials after my name are ADHD. So, but I am going to be an advocate for that to mean something. So anyhow, I want to go ahead and get started, and the first presenters that we have are Robin and Irene.
Community for Permanent Supported Housing is delighted to be part of this event. We are a charity in North Texas that focuses on collaboration between public, private, and volunteer sectors to create more housing for adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities across 7 counties in North Texas. And my job today is to present the data. Irene will be here to tell some personal stories and to share some needs that this community has regarding support in the community, but I'm here to share some data. There are 97,000 adults in North Texas with an intellectual and developmental disability and at least one limitation to living on their own. And in fact, the people with Down syndrome and autism and Fragile X and brain trauma injuries and other diagnoses are the most needful people in our community when you look at how much we have invested as a community in terms of their public education, their parents investing in their support, and the needs that they have as they age. In the state of Texas, there are beds for only 3% of this population. So there are 500,000 people with intellectual and developmental disabilities in Texas, and should something tragic happen to a family member who is taking care of that individual, that adult, for example, it is probably, there is a likelihood that there are only 3 in 10 beds available for that person. That means there is a huge social issue in our community rising about the lack of housing and, in fact, the homelessness of this population if housing isn't addressed in the very near future. North Texas happens to have the most concentrated population of adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities in Texas. And that's primarily because we are a growth industry for jobs. And with jobs comes people moving in. And with people moving in comes people with disabilities. About 3% of our population have people with intellectual and developmental disabilities in their families. And for every one person with a disability, there are at least 4 people who are very, very concerned about the health and well-being of that child in their lives. But we have some other statistics that are also very alarming. The caregivers of these people are aging, and about 20% of these caregivers are 60 years and older. So with the great medical care that our children are getting and living longer, we are also aging in our homes with them. And the result is an aging population of caregivers, an aging population of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So what happens to these individuals when we as family members are no longer able to care for them? It's a question that we as Community for Permanent Supported Housing are trying to answer in terms of the projects that we take on to establish more housing up here in North Texas. Some other statistics that you may or may not be aware of. 10% of grandparent caregivers are giving care to their grandchildren who have disabilities. So again, we are looking at grandparents who have taken on the responsibility of fostering their grandchildren. 10% of these grandchildren have disabilities. It was just released this past week. It is estimated that 1 in 68 children are diagnosed on the autism spectrum. So now when we have this great concentration of highly educated and highly dedicated people in North Texas coming here, doing their job, making a name for Texas as a whole, we are now having these people giving birth to children that are at risk for not having enough housing when their parents are no longer able to care for them. It is also estimated that 90% of adults living with Down syndrome will be diagnosed with Alzheimer's by the age of 49. So now we're talking about senior medical care, where Alzheimer's has been the very primary focus in senior centers and medical support, is now being pushed down to middle age when it comes to how are we treating people with Alzheimer's, and that in fact if people with Down syndrome live long enough, they will have Alzheimer's. So we have to take care of that medical situation. Just 30% of caregivers are on track to maintain their standard of living when they retire at the age of 65. So what does that mean? That means that there is not money available in the assets that these individuals have to take care of these children 20, 30, and 40 years after they pass away. There isn't enough savings because of our economic situations, our responsibilities for other family members, our responsibilities for our own health to ensure that our children are financially taken care of for as long as they will live. There was also a nationwide study in 2012 that looked at the impact of supplemental security insurance on this population. It is virtually impossible for people with disabilities receiving federal and state funding to obtain decent, safe, affordable, and accessible housing in this community. For every single state in the nation, that was the finding. Texas is no different. In fact, I was in Louisville the other day, the average one-bedroom rental apartment rate is $711 per month in Louisville today, and our children who are receiving SSI are receiving on an average of $710 a month. So the rent is unaffordable for most people. The government, and I'm talking about the state, the local, and the federal government, does not cover funding housing for most people with disabilities. So we have on our mission statement to address this issue in the most timely, cost-effective, collaborative manner. And again, we look at how the public, private, and volunteer sectors can work toward making this happen. We are not relying on the government for all of our answers. So that's the data.
Here is what we know. Parents and family members are afraid to take the next step to an independent life for their family member with IDD. Why is that? Housing options are unreliable, not always in their community. Friends are not able to be part of the decision to move as a waiting list takes precedence, or timing is off to live with someone they know. Staffs are underpaid and sometimes undertrained. Trust and familiarity is a real issue. Discrimination exists, and our kids are not always welcome together in the very neighborhoods where they now live. So parents are afraid to die. I'm going to repeat that. Parents are afraid to die. We know that. They tend to hang on to their children with IDD way too long because of the real fear that their children will be isolated, mistreated, and depressed after the parents die. In the last few months, a father, recently from Plano, killed his 20-year-old son and then committed suicide from fear for his son's future. And a 35-year-old was found dead under a bridge in Corpus Christi that had lived in a state facility that was known for record numbers of abuse and neglect cases. What a comfort it would be to find a real affordable, safe alternative while the parents are still healthy, energetic, and able to support the transition of their offspring. Where everyone could be excited about the changes being made, where a faith community is involved. To have a sense of security because there are additional pairs of eyes watching and more people being involved in creating a blessed and quality life for adults with IDD would calm so many lives. Faith communities, even those that have the best interests of this population, are usually unaware of the real need as parents age, become ill, and die. Facts. When a caregiver is no longer available, the adult with disabilities is sent wherever there is a bed. Most probably the rent or cost of houses in the person's neighborhood prohibit a provider from renting or buying there, so the adult is moved elsewhere, is put on a very long waiting list. Then lack of planning and funding may prohibit transportation of the person back to the life they once knew. Meeting friends on weekends, keeping a job that is now a distance from the place they live, continuing to be part of a faith community of choice can all be gone in the blink of an eye. So what is needed to be done? Many churches, synagogues, temples, different denominations of houses of worship have started programs to encourage adults with IDD to come and be part of their congregation. Not all, but many. Sadly, 36% of faith communities do not even encourage families with children with disabilities to be part of their congregation because of a denial by staff that they exist and need support. This is a real number, 36%. But many still do, and when they do, they usually help younger children. We find that a lot. In researching groups in other states that are very successful, it is apparent that when everyone becomes involved, the benefits to the faith community, not just to the families, are a real gift. This is part of a newsletter that the Arsh Jewish Daybreak community in New York says, and I quote, "It is often the gift of individuals with a disability to overcome barriers and bring together around them many different people. When that gift is lived out in an interfaith context, its richness and fruitfulness is further amplified as people of diverse backgrounds and belief systems join together in a common commitment that nurtures mutual respect, appreciation, and friendship. Anyone doing pastoral work in an interfaith community has the wonderful opportunity, as well as an obligation, to learn about the other faiths represented in the community so as to support creatively the members of these faiths and to help those of the dominant faith to learn about and value the presence of these others. Look what's happening today. As individuals of other faiths grow in their own religious tradition, they can be encouraged to bring the gift of their tradition to the wider community. I personally have a nephew through marriage in Chicago he was raised a Catholic. His father died at the age of 56, and his mother died suddenly at the age of 67. His siblings took what inheritance was meant for him, and after a very short time put him into a group home in a depressed neighborhood. After he'd been there 5 months or so, an elderly aunt went to pick him up for a holiday and couldn't find him. When she did, he was 2 blocks away, playing pool in a small, mostly black Baptist church. They had adopted the tenants of a few group homes, and my nephew had found a support system that really, really liked him. Neither side seemed to notice he wasn't a Baptist or black. And Michael always tells him about the church he attended with his mom. He told me personally he likes the music in his new church better. Do I hear an amen? He wants to go to his old church for services, but no one offered to take him. So he's made friends and found a way to still have a church family. It's beautiful. Since 1975, Catholic Charities Progress of Peoples Development Corporation, long title, I think it's CCPOP, the affordable housing developer of Catholic Charities in Brooklyn and Queens, has served as a catalyst for growth in many neighborhoods. They transform vacant land and buildings into affordable housing units, and as a result, transform the lives of individuals and families. Catholic Charities serves people with developmental disabilities who live at home with their families or caregivers. Among the services they provide to the developmentally disabled are comprehensive case management, home and community services waivers, and family support case management. They also provide residences for these adults, offering 24-hour supervision, daily skills training, recreation, and a variety of psychological, social, and clinical services such as medical care, and speech training. Wow. So what is needed? Most importantly, introductions between the faith communities and the adults with IDD living near them throughout North Texas. Become a friend. A look at the way services are now tied to specific places that our children have to live before they can get any help. Our adult children need to decide where they want to live, with whom they want to live, and then be given services where they live. Ask why they can't choose. Developing natural training through the integration of the congregations and discovering what needs are not being met for individuals with special needs, finding and making friends or interested volunteers to make things happen that are good for everyone. Go play a game of Uno. Give somebody a ride. It's that simple. More training available for houses of faith to learn how to address the needs of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Just ask any parent what they want and then listen. Just listen. Creating more programs that look for common interests in addition to helping this population to live their best lives. How about inviting our kids to programs you already run? Everyone loves being included. More outreach to families with loved ones of all ages living with IDD by the faith community. Invite someone to come to your church or synagogue or temple that you know doesn't have a church home. Someone did that for me and for my family and for my daughter. Revisiting strategies by the faith community to include faith-based housing options and investment in local needs of this population in addition to other worldwide ministries, missions, and financial support. Russia, Mexico, the Philippines. How about the bankrupt families struggling in your area that had medical and pharmacy bills over 6 figures to pay off? How about those folks? Collaboration, kindness, and understanding how to meet the needs of those most likely unable to help themselves is our mission. It is up to all of us here to make it everyone's mission. Thank you.
My name is Lisa Brodsky, and I have the privilege of being the CEO of Community Homes for Adults, otherwise known as CHI. I have with me here Heather Canterbury, our coordinator of our Woolens program, who also stand before you and talk a little bit about that. And I have with us Sandy Kamen, whose brother lives in one of our homes, to talk a little bit about his life at CHI. Also in the audience, we have our Program Services Director, Marianne Quimby, who's here for support. We've been around for 30 years. We just celebrated our 30th anniversary this year. And we were founded by a woman who actually was a president of this synagogue years ago, and her family helped create this synagogue, is Carmen Miller Michael. And actually, she passed away right after Thanksgiving, and she was 87 years old. And her daughter actually lives in our homes. So what we basically do is we provide a continuum of care for folks that have intellectual disability. We can take someone when they're 18 years old. So we're the only organization in the Jewish community that takes care of adults from the time they're 18 until for their entire lives, a continuum of care. And I think that's really important, is the most important priority to us is our quality of care. And actually, I do have to brag, Marianne, because we had the state come in this week to do a survey, an audit, and they scrutinize everything we do, and we got a perfect score. So congratulations to our staff on that. So that tells you a little bit about the quality of programs and how we take care of our residents. We own 6 group homes in the Dallas County area. We have 24 residents, and we have staff to support them. We have vans and transportation. Many of our residents work. We have residents from the age of 24 to in their late 60s, and different levels of intellectual disability. I think also we have 12 residents that live in more of assisted living and 12 that are state funded. So we have a combination of both. As I've said, many of our residents do go to work, and we support them, and Heather will talk a little bit more about that. And I think also what's important, too, is we encourage our residents and our clients to participate in the community. And when I talk about continuum of care, I'm not only just talking about our 24 residents, I'm talking about all the families and all the adults that live in the community, and we support them as well, with jobs and transportation and understanding and helping them with life skills. And again, Heather's going to talk more about that. But we're a two-pronged organization. We have our group homes, but we also help people in our community because we are full and we do have a very long wait list. But it's important that we feel it's important that we serve those in the community as well. In terms of our funding, about 25% of our funding does come from the state. We do a heck of a lot of fundraising because the state provides a certain amount of funds, and we spend more of those funds on our residents and our clients because we believe, again, in quality of care. So we have to fundraise that difference, that delta of money, and we have some amazing donors, and we have a fantastic board, and one of our board members, Minnie Blackwell, is here today to support us as well. We also do special events. We have a lot of special events for our families. We have a family association that Heather will also talk about. We also receive funds from our resident fees. Those families that we have that are in our assisted living program, they come to us and we talk about what they can pay. Not all of them pay the full fee it costs to live in our homes, which is close to $60,000 a year. So we work with families, and again, that's a really important part of our fundraising, because we want to make sure we can really take care of our folks. In fact, tonight we are coming here. The Sisterhood has invited our staff and our board and our families and our residents and our clients to come here for Shabbat. And so we're very involved in the community. We have a huge volunteer corps. I encourage you to visit HI on our website at hidallas.org, and please stay tuned, because in the next month we're getting a brand new website we're very excited about. So I'm going to turn it over to Heather, who's going to talk to you more specifically about the outreach that we do in the community.
First, I want to talk about Woolens Program Services and kind of what that is. What is Woolens Program Services? It's kind of the programming arm of Community Homes for Adults, Inc. It's the all of the non-residential things that we do. So it's the educational, social, spiritual, recreational, and vocational programs that we run. So we assist our clients and our residents in finding jobs in the community. We help them write their resumes, do mock interview skills, all of those things, provide job coaching after they do get a job, and provide that that long-term support once they do find that job. The spiritual things that we do, like she said, we have invitations to temple services, to Shabbat dinners. We have families that host Shabbat dinners in their homes for our residents. Every Friday night, we do have Shabbat dinners in our group homes as well. That is something that we host in our own homes. We celebrate all of the Jewish holidays as well. The social and recreational things that we do, we're in a special needs theater group at the JCC. It's called Habima Theater. If you've never been a part of that or seen that, I encourage you to go. May 18th at the JCC, they're doing Annie this year. In the past, we've done Grease, Oklahoma. Help me out, people. Little Shop of Horrors, Bye Bye Birdie, Wizard of Oz. It's an adapted screenplay. Lots of music, lots of singing, lots of fun. So tickets are about $5. So JCC, usually about 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, May 18th. They go to the JCC, they work out. We're involved in Best Buddies through the SMU chapter. We are involved in Special Olympics through the Richardson Roadrunners adult team. Some of the educational things that we do, we bring in nutritionists to provide nutritional seminars to our residents. We had a financial planner to come in and talk about financial types of things with our residents, budgeting. We've had a book club in the past. So just a lot of different educational types of opportunities that we have. Talking about our support services that we offer, I know Lisa talked about it just a little bit, and I don't want to get deep into the types of funding that we receive and get all of our heads swimming, but we do take general revenue through MetroCare, Texas Home Living, HCS, private pay, and DARS for supported employment. So just to kind of hit on those just a little bit if anybody's wondering. But we provide respite services, community support services, life skills training, supported employment, day habilitation, and behavioral supports, kind of through the Woolens Program Services and funded through one of those options there. So the family association that she wanted me to talk about is an association that's made up of our client families and our resident families. And we usually have a picnic at least once or twice a year that our residents, our clients, and all of our family members are invited to. It's usually at Cottonwood Park or a park in kind of Richardson, Plano, North Dallas area, since that's where all of most of our families live, somewhere in that area. It's just a time for families to come together with their family member to network, and families just to get together on a nice spring, fall afternoon to network together and just chat and meet each other, just to have some fun at the park. So I think that's all that I have. We have Sandy came in here, and she is the family member of Morris Taubin, one of our longtime residents over at Todd House, and she's just going to speak from a family member's perspective and her experiences at HI.
I guess I'm pretty much going to talk to you about Morris's transition from when he got there to where he is now, and it's mostly just written as a speech, so bear with me. When Morris was accepted to HI in January of 1999, I was thrilled. I had received their brochures in the mail, and my husband Mark knew one of the past board chairs, but none of that prepared us for what was to be the new normal for Morris and our family. For most of his teens and 20s, Morris had lived in private and parochial settings, as well as state-run group homes and residential treatment centers. Whether he wanted to be noticed or was unable to control himself, I don't know, but the only way he drew attention to himself was through negative behaviors. These patterns of extreme anger, destruction of property, and running away were some of the primary reasons that my parents were no longer able to physically manage him. We were looking for a place that Morris could call home, a place where he could thrive and develop lifelong friendships, and eventually what he would come to know as his family of friends. He moved into his own furnished room, which we immediately decorated with as much Dallas sports memorabilia as possible. First and foremost, his beloved Dallas Cowboys. Morris can recite names and numbers of most, if not all, of the Cowboys from the last 25 to 30 years, maybe longer. He became part of the High family, and that was important on many levels. For the first time, Morris was expected to participate and manage meal planning and preparation, doing laundry, vacuuming, setting the table, and cleaning up. He had responsibilities and chores, just like the rest of us. As staff worked to control and manage negative behavior through consequences and the taking away of privileges, Morris began to realize that he could be recognized for positive behavior, and his true personality began to shine. Most important to know, Morris is a very sensitive man and has a huge empathic heart. He has a great sense of humor. He loves to sing and dance, especially Motown and Michael Jackson. He loves to play basketball and softball, attend Dallas Cowboy home games, and watch any and all sports. Morris had several job opportunities and worked for many years. During that time, he received on-the-job encouragement and training through the High Network. He worked on social interaction and communication skills and was encouraged to learn to express his needs in an appropriate format. Living at High, he has been surrounded by a loving and extended family, the Jewish community. All of the major holidays are celebrated, Purim, Sukkot, and Hanukkah being some of his favorites. The residents are welcome to attend services on the High holidays and Shabbat. There is always a happy, familiar group of synagogue friends and High board members who come to bring joy to the High residents, not to mention food, food, and more food, the true earmark of any well-run Jewish organization. And speaking of food, when it became apparent that many of the residents were aging in place and their nutritional needs were changing, a concerted effort was made to improve their diet. Exercise, weight training, and portion control are also emphasized. Morris has lost over 50 pounds in the last couple of years, and that is due to the diligence and consistency of the staff and their commitment to keeping all of the residents as healthy as possible. Morris has grown both spiritually and emotionally. He has participated in grief counseling after the deaths of our parents. He has attended the weddings of 2 of his nephews, met new nieces and nephews, and learned to support his fellow residents as they experience the cycle of life. Morris has seen that he is not the only person who has experienced loss and consoles and supports his peers. He sheds tears and expresses his feelings. As a High resident, Morris has grown to understand the idea of tikkun olam, helping to make the world a better place. He has visited the sick, entertained the elderly, and volunteered his special gift of making others smile. For someone who was reclusive and angry for much of his life, he has become one happy fellow. Of course, we are all disappointed when we don't get our way or want something now, But he has learned that he is an adult, and sometimes we just have to deal. I always think of that song, you can't always get what you want, but if you try sometimes, you might find you get what you need. You will see Morris and his friends most anywhere. It's like Where's Waldo? High residents are at the Rangers games, Special Olympics, concerts, movies, the JCC, the Kosher Chili Cook-Off, the State Fair, ARC dances, Kaboom Town, the Meyerson, and Albertsons, just to name a few. I am constantly being told by my friends who have seen them out and about, we just saw Morris at... I love that aspect of living at High. I love knowing they are welcome in our local community and our synagogues, and especially our Jewish community. They are part of something bigger than themselves. And isn't that what life is really all about?
I am glad to be here today. My name is David Heaton. I'm one of the founders of Cornerstone Ranch. Julie, thank you for putting all this together. We're glad to be here. So the description of what we're doing, kind of interesting. Founders will share their personal testimony regarding their call and conviction for establishing Cornerstone. So that's great and amazing because I don't think I'm going to tell you a single statistic or fact. I just get to kind of share what God did. There is something inherently awkward about this, though, because it's our personal conviction and our testimony. And so we're all from all these different backgrounds, this multiplicity of faiths in this room. So I thought about it, how do I be inclusive in the way I speak and not offend anyone? And I thought about it and tried to work out the language, and I'm pretty much convinced that if I really try that, like my head will start spinning. I'll probably start singing the Shema and like confuse Sunnis and Shias, and it'll be ugly. So I'm just going to kind of talk from my heart here, and if you need to do some translation in your mind to your faith community, then please do so. The story of Cornerstone starts, I think, with any good story. It starts with a girl. I think all good stories start with a girl, and the girl in this story is that one down there. Second from the end. And I was a young freshman at SMU, and I saw this pretty girl walking down the hall, and she was wearing this T-shirt of this ministry that I had been involved in when I was in high school. And I said, I was involved with that group. And she said, oh, well, that's funny. I'm going to a meeting right now. Would you like to come with me? And I thought, she's cute. Sure, I'll go. I mean, that is the best possible motives for any type of ministry is chasing a girl, as we all know. And she paused and said, well, it's a little different. It's for kids with disabilities. And I thought, she's still cute, I'll still go. And so two young, silly freshmen walked into a room of about 30 folks with various physical and mental disabilities. And our hearts were crushed, touched, lifted up, and torn apart, kind of all together at the same time. A verse that I'd read before kind of came vividly alive in my mind. 1 Corinthians, but God chose what is foolish in the world to shame the wise. God chose what is weak in the world to shame the strong. God chose what is low and despised in the world, even the things that are not, to bring to nothing things that are, so that no human being may boast in the presence of God. And so this young college freshman, full of all this intellectual vigor, thinking that I was going to come and learn and gain and get so smart and outthink the world, I was shamed by this group of people, and I loved it. And it was perfect. It was exactly what I needed. And there hasn't been a day in my life since then that I haven't wanted to be shamed by the IDD community. So our college experience was very different. It wasn't about fraternity parties or trips to Cancun. It was about which one of these kids are we going to take to the movies this weekend? You know, who can we take to camp this summer? How are we going to, get away from class to go up to E.D. Walker High School or Notre Dame High School and bring them lunch? So we had this very different experience, and it was great. We loved it. It was amazing. We learned so much. But at the same time, there was this kind of dark underbelly to the situation. Because through our 4 years at SMU, we got to see kids graduate, age out. We learned that phrase. And we saw them go from being these energetic high school kids to maybe not so much. We saw parents struggling. We saw kids that once were very happy and energetic. They lost the input in their lives, and they lost some activity, and we saw behaviors pop up that they'd never had before. We saw people that we worked with kind of go to brothers and sisters that maybe weren't prepared for that maybe never planned on that. And we just saw some hard things, just hard things. And another part is we saw parents and this expectation that the government was going to take care of things for them, that everything was going to work out because we pay our taxes and the government is good and everything will be fine. And we realized the stark reality that there needs to be something else. And we feel passionately at Cornerstone that it is the role of the faith communities to care for our friends with disabilities. We feel like the faith communities, we have abdicated our role. I believe in any sacred text that you adhere to, we are supposed to care for the broken, for the weak. This is our job. This is not the government's job. Sure, they can help, and that's good, and I'm not against government funding in all matters, but to think that we can rely completely on them it's just false. And it's a fairy tale. And so if anything, I hope today that we can be encouraged as the faith community to step up and to make sure that we are doing our job, that we're not... I feel like the government, the political structure is constantly changing. The funding from the government is constantly changing. The policy from the government is constantly changing. And so we have to put our faith in something that doesn't change. And for us, that's our Lord. And our model of care comes out of John 10:10. The thief comes to kill, steal, and destroy, but he has come that he can have life to the full. And we just saw our friends with disabilities not living that full life. They were living a kind of a shadow life, often babysat by the television, for hours at a time. So we were encouraged and convicted and felt like God wanted us to do something about that. So we, upon graduating college, took in 3 young guys with disabilities. We were 21 and 22 and instantaneous parents of 3. It was hilarious. Okay, they were all minorities, and we lived in a gated community in Preston Hollow. We were 21 and 22 when everyone else was, 60. And we went on walks around that neighborhood every day so everybody saw us, because we wanted to show them, that these people were important, that they are cared for, and that we needed to do something about that. And so we loved our time with our 3 young gentlemen, and we were on full-time ministry with staff with a ministry, but yet felt called to do more, felt like we could do more. And so we began a search for land, and we ended up buying 42 acres on the outskirts of McKinney. And on that 42 acres, we built a home that for about 5 years we lived in, as well as 6 young adults with mental disabilities. Downs, cerebral palsy, autism spectrum, a little bit of everything. And we've been blessed to have this amazing program through our staff out there. We've taken on the mantra of serving the community, serving the kingdom. To be able to look at our residents and say they have value, they have worth, they can make an impact. Rick Warren wrote a book, a preacher out of California, called Purpose-Driven Life. And it was a huge hit across, all sorts of denominational walls. And I think that resonated with people because everybody wants purpose, don't we? Don't we want to feel, don't we need to know our purpose? The disability community is no different. They need to know that they have a purpose. And so we've created this amazing program where we're out in the community every day, where we're serving, we're folding bulletins at different churches, we're organizing cans at the food pantry, we're delivering Meals on Wheels, saying, hey, if you didn't bring John his food today, you wouldn't have been able to eat. And so it's great in Cynthia and I and our staff being the hands and feet of Christ and coming to serve the disability community. They in turn get to go serve back. They're not always on just the receiving end, these poor little folks that need some help, but they get to go and make an impact and do great things in their community. So that's a little bit of where we come from. Cynthia, what's that? What we're doing next? Yeah, sorry, I don't work off notes too well. This is kind of step one in our vision. We have big plans for the future. So we're on 42 acres, and we have one home right now. We have 7 residents in the home and a day program for 4 people. And our long-term goal is to be able to have multiple homes, kind of a whole community for folks with disabilities. Not only serving kind of the mild to moderate range, but to be able to have homes that have some degree of specification in each one for folks that are higher functioning and just need a little bit of assistance and encouragement, transportation, medication. Have homes for lower functioning folks that can be more therapeutic in nature and can provide for their medical needs as they move on in life. So we have big plans. We're excited to see God carry them out. My wife is going to come and talk a little bit about her perspective, and it's funny, like we can't extricate our faith from what we do. Cornerstone, if it was simply a humanitarian organization, I'd really want no part of it. That wouldn't interest me at all. Our faith is so tied to this. There's no other way to go about it. It's why we do what we do, and it's even how we do what we do. Cynthia's going to share a little bit about that.
I'm Cynthia Heaton, David's wife, and we are the founders of Cornerstone Ranch. And I just am so thankful for the opportunity just to share from my heart of why we do what we do. And I am a crier, so if I do start to cry, I hope you don't get uncomfortable, but it just really comes from a place of passion in my heart. And so really, I feel like the best way to tell the story of why we do what we do is just to tell a story. And this story is found in the Bible. It's found in 2 Samuel chapter 8. And it's a story that speaks about someone with special needs. And so as a young girl in college when I first heard this story, it struck my heart because that's what we spend our time doing, was spending time with people with special needs. So I began to think that every time I heard a story about someone with special needs, that this story was about me. It was for me because I knew it was tied to my destiny. And so this story in 2 Samuel chapter 8 is about King David. And King David is seeking and earnestly desiring to show God's kindness and to show God's love to anyone that is alive, still alive in the household of Saul, who was king before him. And so his desire is to show God's kindness and love, and he learns that there is someone from the house of Saul that is still alive. And this person's name is Mephibosheth. It's a very hard name to say, and I wasn't going to try to say the name, but the name is important. But so he hears that this man is alive, but he has special needs. He has a disability. Both of his legs are lame. He probably was a paraplegic. And so he learns that this man is alive, and he desires to show God's kindness to him because he wants to restore what belongs to his family. He wants to restore what belongs to him. Jonathan was one of Saul's sons, and David had a very deep covenant friendship with Jonathan, and so he wanted to restore back all that belonged to their family. And so he hears of this man, Mephibosheth, and he learns of his disability. And the reason why it was important for me to say his name and to know his name, because I wanted to just call him Mo or just skip over entirely because it's a hard name to say, but his name is important because it's a Hebrew name, and you don't just put letters together to make a sound. That's not what a name is. A name in the Hebrew understanding, it really defines a person. And his name means shameful thing. And so, and then we also learn from the story that he lives in a place called Lo-Debar, which means dry places in Hebrew. And so we get this picture of this man who's lost all of his family. He has a disability. He can't move his legs. He lives in a place that's a dry place called Dry Places. And his name, he's been defined by this name that means shameful things. So we get this picture of a very destitute person. And then the story even goes further and shows us what's in his heart. Because he's invited by King David to come to his palace. And when he gets there, he is just humbled and terrified. Why would David invite me to his palace? And he says to the king, he says, "What is your servant that makes you pay such attention to a dead dog like me?" So we see even into his heart that he has no self-esteem. He considers himself shamed and destitute and broken. But David, he is overjoyed to restore to this man all that belongs to him. Every bit of land that was his, he desires to restore back. And not only does he restore the land, but he invites Mephibosheth to come and eat at his table every day. He said, "Come to my house, come and eat with me, stay with me." And so this man that is disabled, he's weak, he's broken. His name means shameful thing. He's now feasting at the table of the king. And so this story, this is really the heart of Cornerstone Ranch. We find those that the world might consider shameful, those who are many times cast aside and left to live in dry places, the weak, the broken, the disabled, and we invite them to come to a place where they're loved and they're valued and they're cherished and they're restored. We invite them to come to a place where they are accepted and encouraged to live life to the fullest. But we were asked to share a conviction, and really, I don't think that this is just Cornerstone's story. I really believe that this is God's story. I believe that this is God's heart, because He's done this for us. He sent Messiah to find us, the broken, the lame, the shameful, the weak, the sinful, the destitute. He sent Messiah to find us, and he's invited us to come and eat at his table. He's invited us to come and feast on his kindness, on his grace. And so that's why we do what we do, because we feel, it says in 2 Corinthians that we are ambassadors of the Messiah, that in effect, God isn't making his appeal through us. And so we come and we do this, and we invite the broken to come and live in our home and to care for them, because this is what God first did for us. This is why we do what we do at Cornerstone Ranch. I'm going to introduce to you my friend Morgan Taylor. She is on our board of directors, and she has a great vision of how to get more churches involved with Cornerstone Ranch. And she has a beautiful daughter named Larson who has Down syndrome, and she's a part of our day program. So we're going to hear a little bit from Morgan. Thank you.
I do so love the Heatons. They're amazing people. And if you can translate that talk into the heart of how they treat the individuals, the kids, I call them kids still, kids at Cornerstone Ranch, it's an amazing thing to see, like nothing I've ever seen before. So my name is Morgan Taylor, and I have 2 children. I have a husband, 28 years, a son named Cooper, and when Larson was born, we were told she had Down syndrome. Mr. and Mrs. Taylor, we have some bad news for you. Your daughter has Down syndrome. My husband and I often laugh and say we'd like to get a hold of that neonatal doctor right now and show him Larson, because she is truly the highlight of our lives. And she is an amazing young woman. I am passionate about special needs. I love them. When I look at them, I do not see a disability. I see ability. I want to know what's inside of them, what they can do, and how I can bring that out. Because I have a creative God, and He made them just so special and so unique. This is not about me, but I had polio when I was 3, and I spent time in leg braces. Never understood why that was what happened to me as a child until I had Larson. And one night, after spending many nights on a nursery floor because she was very ill for the first 3 years of her life, I felt like the Lord told me, He said, I gave you a heart for Larson when you were a little girl in leg braces. So I want to look at every special need child and adult as I wanted to be looked at when I was young and little. And so what I do today, I am privileged to teach an art program at Cornerstone Ranch. I am an artist, and one of the first things we saw about Larson was that she was artistic. And so we take true works of art, we paint on canvases. You would be amazed at their talents and at their gifts. And the travesty of it is that nobody ever gave them a chance. We serve a creative God. Did he stop being creative? Or did we just stop giving them chances? So it's all about chances. So that's what I do at Cornerstone. But when Larson was born, my number one concern, and I remember saying this to my husband Richard, what are we going to do with Larson? Because we were old parents. He's 39, she's 22, do the math. I was concerned. She was going to outlive us. And from that point on, I lived with a fear, and I searched. I went to every residential community all over the state of Texas. I studied, and I looked. But I didn't want, as one of the ladies said, I wanted her in our community. I didn't want her in Houston or Austin or someplace else. I wanted her near me. I wanted someplace where I could go. How important this is for them to live in community near their families, and so that their family members can even come see them and participate in their lives. They don't need to be hundreds of miles away. And I'd almost given up hope until I found Cornerstone Ranch. It's like no other place. The way the adults are treated is with honor, respect, and dignity. They are given opportunities. It is an amazing place. And I'm sure all of these are, and I rejoice in what you ladies are doing because I can hear it in the way you speak about how you feel about them. And as a parent, that's all I care about. Are you going to take care of them? One of the things I do is I've been given the opportunity, I guess now for about 8 years, to teach a Bible study class at my church in Frisco at Stonebriar Church. We started going there. There was a program for the younger children, but as Larson aged out of that program, there was nothing for the teenagers or for the older children. I got really tired of watching her sit on the floor with baby kids as a 13-year-old playing with blocks. So we started a Sunday school class for special needs adults. We have about 30 on the roster and 25 that attend regularly. And what I began to see, and what the Lord opened my eyes to see, is that I have half of those adults have single moms. They do not have the resources to care for that autistic son, that Asperger's daughter, and that Down syndrome daughter, to how they need to be cared for. So I might have been okay with Larson at Cornerstone, but I'm not okay to leave all of them behind. I'm just not. I can't accept that. I have seen special needs adults brokenhearted when that elderly parent dies. I have seen no one step up to the plate to take care of them, and their lives are devastated. And frankly, I have never seen one recover from the transition into a state facility. I do not recognize that adult that has had that happen to them, and that is a travesty. It should not be happening with the wealth that we have available to us. So what I propose, and I saw this quote, and knowledge is what connects us to the past to the present. Wisdom is what connects the present to the future. We have the knowledge. We have all the knowledge and the statistics we need to know what is happening to our children. What we need is that we stand in a pivotal place in time where we take that knowledge and it becomes wisdom and we impact the future. And I challenge you to do it today, to go into your faith communities. My vision for Cornerstone Ranch and for my church is that I have actively gone to my church and said, you need to build a house at Cornerstone Ranch for my Sunday school kids. And that you as a church can say, come family with your special needs child. I can take care of your child from the day your special needs child is born till he goes home. That's what each one of us should be able to, each faith community should be able to say, but we're not doing it. They're very cute when they're young, but when they get to be 6'4" and they are taller and bigger to me, and I look up at them in art classes and I go, whoa, you know, people are frightened of them. They're not as cute and cuddly. But I will tell you, I have never seen hearts so pure and spirits so great as I have in these special needs adults. I get them, they come into my art class, and I actually teach one at my church and one at Cornerstone. And one of my autistic children in my Sunday school, you know, did a lot of this. And the first thing I thought, where is that paint going to go when I put that paintbrush in his hand? But you know what? We put that paintbrush in his hand, that hand steadied, and he is one of my finest painters. And I could go into all kinds of details about what happens in the brain with art and everything like that. But it doesn't matter if it's art or if it's knitting or whatever you're doing, it changes their brain. It stops them from watching TV. Are we really willing to lose our kids? Here's the fact, is that I know that you're just like me. You've spent your entire life giving your special needs child opportunities that they would have. Are we really ready to desert them now? Are we? Are we really ready to desert the other people's children that we know of too? The thing I love about the Heatons is what I was called. I was given a child, but God laid it on their hearts. And which of you in here don't have a special needs child, but God has laid it on your heart? I stand up and I cheer for you, and I say you're amazing. And I say I will do anything I can do to help you out. For whatever you want to accomplish, I will help you. And I'm sure you will find other people to help you as well. So I'm not willing to give up Larson. I think it's time for justice for our kids. Will you help me?
I was asked to speak about mental health and wellness and its availability and its benefits for individuals who are in independent or supported housing. And so in order to do that, I would like to describe 3 different individuals, and I would like you to think about how these individuals might benefit from mental health and wellness support. So instead of me saying, here's why it's helpful, I would like to task you with listening to these descriptions and then thinking about and helping me kind of identify how these people might be helped. First, we're going to talk about Sam. Sam is a 40-year-old male with schizophrenia and an anxiety disorder. And he lives independently during periods when he can pay his rent. Often he's evicted, and then he returns to live home with his parents. Sam is very smart. He's applied for many jobs but has difficulty maintaining employment due to his disability. Sam wants desperately to be involved in the community. He attends a local church where he says, people are nice to me, but it feels fake. No one really wants to be my friend. Sam wants to be married and frequently tries to start relationships with women 20 years younger than he is on the internet. Sam is lonely and spends much of his time at home, sleeping or reading. Sam does not enjoy groups for other individuals with special needs because he doesn't think he can relate. Sam believes that one day he can work a job as a professor, but currently he spends much of his day asleep. Sarah. Sarah is a 30-year-old female with a cognitive disability, as well as significant impairment in motor functioning, which affects her speech and language, ability to move, and complete simple tasks like bathing and buttoning and signing her name. She lives in a supportive housing program and engages in various activities with her housemates. Sarah has 3 brothers. 3 weeks ago, her older brother died as a result of diabetes. Sarah has been asking for her brother and asking for information on what happened. The family does not want to burden Sarah with this information and is unsure what to tell her. Over the past week, Sarah has been making comments at recreational activities like, "My brother dead, don't know where my brother is," and asking if other people like care providers and family members are going to die. She has also begun to fear leaving her supported housing unit and says no thanks whenever she's offered an opportunity to go to an outing. Kara was an active and vibrant member of her community. She comes from a large family and enjoys good friends, good food, and good times. As a result of cancer, diabetes, and other related illnesses, Kara is now totally blind. She lives on her own and manages getting around with the assistance of others, including special DART buses and a homemaker. Kara has difficulty with relationships and has been in several abusive relationships with men. Recently, Kara's boyfriend was released from prison for the 3rd time. Kara has invited him to live with her because she is lonely and can use help with the cooking. She loves to cook, but due to her limitations, she is no longer able to safely prepare meals on her own. Her family has tried to convince her that she should not allow her boyfriend to move in with her. They state the last time he stayed with her, he stole money and bought drugs. They're concerned that Kara is vulnerable, and now due to her blindness, she might not even realize if things are taken out of her home. Kara wants to be independent and feels that her boyfriend could help her to be more independent, and she would like to be able to make her own decisions. 3 very different individuals with disabilities. Very different. Kara is blind, she has diabetes. We have Sarah with a cognitive disability and motor disability, Sam with schizophrenia. Very, very, very different scenarios, all of which have really been kind of pulled and altered from the clients that we see at Jewish Family Service. How do you feel like these individuals might benefit from mental health services? People with disabilities suffer distress no less than those without, perhaps even more so, and they are equally entitled to relief. Based upon research, many individuals with special needs are capable of engaging in psychological therapies, and there's a wealth of evidence that these therapies can be helpful and that in some contexts, there's no alternative to relieving distress. Mental health treatment through psychotherapy, has few, if any, physiological side effects and can be provided in a host of different settings. Mental health treatment for individuals with special needs suffering from mental illness can be useful as a first course of treatment before adding medication, as a possible treatment for individuals whose illnesses have been resistant to medication, or as an adjunct to medication. Studies have shown the need for and benefit of mental health and wellness support for individuals living independently and semi-independently in our community. Some may sit and question how mental health support may be helpful for this population. I think that we have to identify that these individuals have various diagnoses, as my examples above. Mental retardation, autism, Fragile X, blindness, schizophrenia, quadriplegia. This is a broad category of individuals who may benefit from some type of mental health treatment. People with disabilities suffer distress just like the rest of us, and they're equally entitled to relief. What are some challenges that face this population? We could say they're the same challenges that affect the rest of us. The wish to improve the general quality of life. This includes access to food, clothing, shelter, medical care, understanding of the continuum of services that are available to them. It includes the ability to access those services independently or know who can help them to access these services. The wish to belong. Everybody wishes to belong. Individuals with disabilities sometimes can feel very socially isolated and want to be like everybody else. The wish to feel good. Just like the rest, individuals with disabilities suffer from anger, depression, grief, anxiety. The wish for love and intimacy. Many individuals with disabilities have difficulty with interpersonal relationships. When I was preparing for my talk today, I was reading a story about an individual with a physical disability. She was wheelchair bound, and she was talking about what it was like in high school when she was thinking about kissing a boy that she liked. She said there were several options. One was that I could try to navigate him to be sitting in a chair next to me as my wheelchair brushed up against him. When I read that, I thought, wow. The ability to be impulsive and spontaneous and to access basic emotional excitement in an intimate relationship is really a challenge. And that's not even addressing the challenge of an individual with autism, who may not even be able to read the facial cues, may not realize that someone's actually interested in engaging, or may try to engage with someone who isn't. There are also the issues related to interpersonal relatedness within families and within independent and semi-independent housing units. Individuals who move into a supported living environment and are having trouble getting along with staff or other residents. Staff who may not really understand the needs of an individual. Family members who resent having to provide care now that parents are aging and no longer able to provide that care. When I think about mental health services for individuals with disabilities, I think about the individual, the family, and the community that supports them. The wish to feel productive. President of the club, worker in the day hab, chores in the living environment, managerial positions at large companies are all open and accessible to individuals with disabilities. We need to help advocate for them to be productive in the ways that they can. The wish to handle challenges that occur suddenly or as part of a change in life that we all experience. How can mental health and wellness support help? We can work on improving quality of life, increasing socialization through group therapy, through role play activities, and preparing for difficult social interactions. Understanding emotions, teaching. What does it look like when somebody is angry? How will I know if somebody wants to go on a date with me? What is a good way to approach an employer if I need a raise? Cognitive reframing. Maybe they weren't really angry at me. Maybe they stubbed their toe on the way in. Finding helpful ways to manage emotions and identifying healthy outlets for feelings. Enhancing family relationships and providing therapies such as sex education for individuals who might not really understand how all that works. Making sure that they have the ability to appropriately interact with others and teaching them the warning signs for troubled relationships to hopefully help them and protect them in the future. Increasing productivity through connecting with possible jobs or volunteer opportunities, and looking for meaning in the individual's day-to-day tasks. Also being aware, as an outsider, which a mental health clinician would be, that there are increases and decreases in functioning, which happen as a result of illness or injury and as a result of normal aging and life process. And to be able to alter plans and come up with new challenges for individuals who need them. And to provide continuous emotional support and feedback. Talk therapies, applied behavioral analysis, psychoeducation, case management, all fall under the broad category of mental health services. People with disabilities suffer distress no less than those without, and they're equally entitled to relief. At JFS, we're committed to help these individuals create personal, individualized goals and to reach them successfully. We provide mental health support to many individuals in the community who live independently or in supported housing. And we provide these services at a variety of locations, which can change with the need of the individual. We provide home-based services, agency-based services, without regard to an individual's ability to pay, for as long as that client needs that service. We're familiar with state and federal as well as local agencies and work together with them as partners, as well as others in our community, to provide the highest quality of mental health services to those in need.